Is this on? Hello? Yeah. Okay, welcome. Thank you all for being here, despite the weather. My name is Alison Moss. So I'm a journalist and editor at Le Quotidien de l'Art, which maybe some of you have seen printed on the fair these past days. And I'll be moderating today's talk. And as you all know, the talk is titled The Rise of New Artistic Mediums. So before we get started, I think it's important for us to take a very quick moment to perhaps stop on the word medium itself. When we think of medium in analog art, it instantly sparks very clear categories in our mind. We think of painting, we think of sculpture, we think of drawing. Whereas in new media art, it is true that this is a little more hazy in our minds, and perhaps that is due to the ever-expanding notion of new media art itself, which has increasingly encapsulated very different types of media throughout the years with the evolution and rise of new technologies. And that is precisely why we're here today with our fellow panelists who are going to give us some insight on their different approaches to media. And the point I really wanted to stop on and to open up the conversation is that since recently there has been a lot of talk on blockchain being a new medium, a lot of it has been focused on blockchain as a medium of sale rather than of production. And what we'd like to approach here is rather the latter, blockchain as a medium of production, and see in what ways we can separate blockchain as a medium of sale and of production, and how both can sometimes feed into each other. So with me, I have my panel of artists here. They're going to give us a variety of approaches to how they work, whether it's with crypto poetry or sculpture or music, and show us all the vast possibilities that blockchain has brought to them creatively. So without further ado, first of all, I'd like to thank Tezos and Paris Plus for having us today. And I'm going to introduce my fellow panelists. So, on my right, I have Agoria, who's an electronic record producer, composer, and DJ, and works with generative art. I have Kaylin Iwamoto, who is a conceptual crypto writer and artist, and she's the founder of the Crypto Writers Group and co-founder of NFT poetry gallery, The Verse. I have Michelle, who is a curator and member of the creative studio U2PO50, which produces philosophy and art and questions our contemporary world, and uses experimental technologies in its work like AI or generative art or text. And last but not least, I have Hermine Bourdin. And Hermine is a physical sculptress who works and explores by giving a second life to her work through new technology, physical sculpture, by giving a second life to her work through new technologies. So without further ado, I'd like to open up the conversation with a broad question, which would be, how do you find new technologies influence the way you work as artists? Does anybody want to get started?
I mean, I can start, but it's not very elegant, I guess. I'm happy to say the first words. I do music, electronic music, since maybe 25 years, so I guess I embraced technology for my medium long time ago. And it has always, I think the question is all about the tool as an artist. That's the question which is behind, I guess, is which tool we decide to use, to cherish, and is technology could be an artistic tool, which I think is a very good question because, you know, like I have some scenes, for example, that I'm like keeping really cherishly on my side, like after 25 years, and others that I sold, and I was like not very interested by them, maybe after all the tracks I did with them. So this tool is very something that is not really, let's say, technically quantifiable. And speaking about all what we are doing here, like experimenting with codes, with blockchain, with live minting, and all these different approach, is something that is difficult to anticipate? Is it something that we're gonna really cherish, or is it something that is just a tool, like technological tool, that to help us to deliver a message? And I think I will let my colleagues speak now, but I like this question because I think all what is about this new artistic medium actually it's not really questioning the technology, it's questioning the philosophy we have behind. And it's more about what is the artist, what's gonna be the artist, and where we're gonna go.
It's about what it means for an artist or how it positions yourself as an artist. Do any of you have something to add about that?
Hello everyone, thanks for inviting me and the studio. I think you're having a good point there, saying that what is the philosophy that those new technologies can bring, and investigating on these new philosophies that are emerging from this new technology, and then find the appropriate medium, whether it be AI or code, that fits your desire to reflect on these new philosophies. So if for example, if I want to do sci-fi work, maybe I work with AI. If I want to do something about the feedback loop between what the social media are producing and what we're thinking, I will do generative work. And that is how, I see, bouncing on your point, to use medium to interrogate the philosophies that are new because of technologies.
I really like, I think you did a really good job of introducing this notion of medium, and I think it's really important. It's a very important distinction that you made about the medium of distribution and sales and the medium of actual creation. And I think what we're seeing in NFTs is, you're right, there's a lot of NFTs as a means of distribution, and I think it's very important. For example, in our gallery at the Verse, that's one of our main missions, is to change this trope around the starving poet. So, you know, like in the traditional publishing world, poets don't make any money. You know, if you're a poet, you need a second job. And we're trying to change that discourse by helping poets actually make money through their poetry. So I think as a means of distribution, NFTs are extremely important. But you also pointed out NFTs as a medium of production, of creation, and I think that's also extremely interesting from an artistic point of view. And personally, as a conceptual crypto writer, that's something that I really focus on, using the affordances of the technology, of the blockchain technology, to create something, create an experience of literature that couldn't have existed before. So for me, it's something that's very distinct from, you know, a piece of literature that could have been written on a printed page. So the experience for me needs to be different. So whether it be the use of the crypto culture, which we're seeing like a flourishing of a specific, very specific culture, whether it's interrogating that, or questions that arise around this technology, asking questions around how does this change the way we confront or interact or engage with text. How do we read? What does it mean to be a writer? So going back to the question of who is an artist? So for me, the question is, who is an artist? Who is a writer? What does it mean to write with this technology? What does it mean to read? The experience of reading can be very different when you use this technology in a meaningful way, I think.
And in your case, Hermine, I think it's also NFT-based art also interrogates the way you work with traditional media, in your case, sculpture. And you were speaking to me before, just now, about it giving you a more interdisciplinary approach to your work. How has that worked for you concretely?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. The fact that I'm doing physical work to start with new medium that enables me en fait to use it as like a magic wand and to give a second life to my physical work in a more digital way, which enables me to defy the physical universe law and gravity, and I can play then with my work. And it's really liberating as a sculptress, because I have to work with gravity every day, because my sculpture, they need to be stable, they need to be, I can put them somewhere. And with digital, it's a new medium, and I could do it before NFTs. But now the difference, I could do 3D before, but what is new now is that you have a way to be collected, which wasn't the case before, So it's very interesting, because it's a new artistic movement, because it's possible to have this work collected and to have collector, and it's very interesting because you can use this medium and work with it as well. So yeah, and also what I like about the blockchain is that there's this notion that it is eternal, kind of. Your work is inscripted. Sorry, my English, but it's really written, and it cannot be changed. So it was minted that day, and I like to think with that also.
And I think something that, sorry, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would just like to be a bit cautious about the fact that it's going to be eternal. It's true that the transaction related to your work will stay forever on the blockchain node. But if this node happens to stop, if it's linked to a platform, or if we switch to another blockchain, we don't know yet. Looking at all the previous new technologies that are now obsolete, we have to be careful with the thought that it might not be eternal, but people like Tezos are working
exactly.
to do that.
Yes.
And there is one thing that everybody I think forgot also, is like internet is not granted. This is something that everybody think it's forever, and we will have access everywhere anytime. But I would be very cautious about this. Most of all, is internet is not totally granted, and it can be stopped quite easily, and the access can be a bit difficult. And just one thing, because I don't know if because we're here on a boat, I don't know if you see that in the streaming, but there are some waves coming when we speak about movements, and I think it's quite. Tezos did a very good job here.
Very true. I just wanted to bring up one point that had come up a lot during our previous discussions, which was the question of the ego of the artist, because I think it is important also with all we're speaking about the eternity of a work, etc. And we spoke a lot about the ego of the artist being questioned in new media art in general and through the blockchain. Do any of you have any of you found this to be the case specifically when you work?
I love that it questioned the ego of the artist, actually, especially with AI. I just, if you go to my website, agoria.dev, I did a player where you can play my song, and every time you're going to play this song, it's going to be a new version that I don't know myself. So maybe you will have a version with no voice, maybe we'll have a version with no chords, no drums, and I have no clue. And it's very addictive, actually, and it's perpetual version. So every time you play, you press play, you have a new version. And as an artist where, of course you spend a lot of hours in the studio, and you think, okay, I'm done. This is the best version. It's the best thing I did. Now I know it's not true at all, because I've been also confronted to this, AI can propose things to our imaginary that make us think and double think and rethink about how we do things. So AI, I think, is actually depends how. It's like all the technological tools. Of course, you can use it with presets. You can use it with a database that has been not built by you, and then you will do something that will be similar to all other stuff that has been released so far. Or you can use this tool to retrigger it and to make your own path and your own vision, which makes it very interesting. But the place of the ego in the artist here is we used to say, okay, this is my artistical vision, and this is where I want to go. But every morning I get up, I check my latent space, and I see many iterations. Of course, I try to go in this direction, but I'm also, oh wow, what a nice accident, or what a nice proposal. And it's actually a cycle loop, and the artist is not anymore the center point, and I really like this. Yeah,
there's also the idea of a network of idea coming of different ideas and participants coming into play into one work, which I think we can find in some of all of you's work. So has this also participated in kind of abolishing this notion of ego in the art of the artists for some of you? The collaborations with other specialists, whether it's not specifically in the art field, but very different fields?
Go, Kevin.
I think in terms of, I think I can speak to this from my perspective as a gallerist and as an artist. And I think in the gallery at the Verse, we see there's a lot of collaboration. So we ask poets to collaborate with crypto artists. And the work of art that comes out at the end is almost a new experience of poetry. So it's not just a poem on a page, but it can be a video, it's a visual, and they're mutually enhancing and reinforcing, and it's a completely different, like a digital poetry feels like a completely different medium in itself. And in my work personally, I think as a conceptual writer, I mean, people often don't know what that means. Everyone's very familiar with conceptual art, but conceptual writing is, to me, it's similar to conceptual art in that it is the concept that is first and foremost the most important. And it is not personal. Like, the writing is not personal. It's not, how do I feel, what do I think? It's more about the processes of writing that give way to a certain text. So it can be about remixing someone else's text, or it could be about using a certain procedure to create a new text. But that's not really about, my deepest, darkest thoughts or emotions. So it's a completely different notion of writing itself. So in that sense, there's less traditional notions of ego in the writerly sense. Although I do have to say that I'm kind of a stickler for the concept. Like, I do have try to have a strong hold on the concept. So that's maybe, I don't know if that would be ego, but maybe less ego, but more like conceptual importance. And I know that Michel works with AI, and I think in writing as well, there's a lot of, it's a growing field, AI collaborative writing. And it's a big part of the gallery as well. We have a whole series called Gentext, where we invite poets to work with AI and to create new works. So traditional poets working with AI and introducing them to new tools and seeing what that can do to their writing, which is extremely interesting, the output that comes out. So yeah, I think there's a burgeoning, very flourishing field in writing as well that kind of where the writer takes the step back and works with, whether it's AI or with artists or with concepts or procedures. So yeah, I think that's also happening in the literary field on the blockchain.
I think you probably have a lot to say about this as well.
Yeah, because I think that AI in a way is a logical, playing with AI is a logical consequence of the dilution of the ego, because you're playing with all the memories that we've been producing with art or with text. So you're playing with 10,000 egos if you're generating music or if you're generating text. So mechanically, the ego is gonna get less important, I would say. And it's actually now impossible to credit an AI. If you generate an image with AI, you cannot legitimately say it's yours. To me, it's one sign of the dilution of ego by playing with technologies. And of course, blockchain, producing your work, you remain anonymous. So there are different distinctive signs that are pushing this lowering of ego. And I think it's really with this relationship of producing with machines, with these subjectivities that are different to the human ones, that from this new dialogue of subjectivities between human and machines, the ego gets less important, but in our practice here, but the ego figure of the character of the artist remains still in the market. You still need figures.
Yeah, I don't know for myself about ego, but what I can say is that it opens a lot the collaboration between different mediums of arts or sense, as for Agoria, or different, or you, Kalen, and AI, everything. Me, I was collaborating with dance, so mixing dance and sculpture, and so of course it's a new dialogue, and it's very humbling and very different, because this is something I couldn't do in physical sculpture. And with the new technology, you can really combine different fields of art. In my case, sculpture and dance, for instance, by having a dancer from the Paris Opera wearing a suit, a Vicon suit with motion tracking device, and then you retranscribe the dance on a sculpture that you 3D scan, and then you rigged it, and that really becomes like a character, and you can play with. So it's this is something also I love about new technology, and after inscribing it in the blockchain, because it's a new way of creating for myself, at least. So.
I just want to add one quick word about. I think so far we are at the top of the ego pyramid in the world. I think we can't be higher than this, in my opinion. It's like everything has been done that to say to everyone, your ego is fantastic, you're the best, you need to show how good you are, you're amazing. And this is why I love so much all this new medium, what's happening with Web3, and with all the bad habits everyone took with social media, especially in social networks, which has, in my opinion, ruined totally the goodwill and so many things in the world. Like, I think this collaborative approach, because we are speaking about collaboration here, no matter if it's AI, artist, or I think this is the thing which makes me the most excited about.
No, absolutely, and that's another question that I actually wanted to bring up, because in analog art there is this very neat, sometimes not in all works, of course, but generally there is a more neat separation between the artist and the viewer, and there is kind of that gap between both of them. And it seems also that with Web3 and the deconstruction of these kinds of relations, we can build, an artist can build new relationships as well to its audience or collectors or etc. And I was wondering if you found that to be the case for you specifically as well. Or if you have any concrete examples that you can give us that have materialized this kind of new relationship in some shape or form.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. And I think it's what's happening is really fascinating, actually, with this new technology. I see a lot of artworks, not just a lot of artworks that change the relationship between the artist and the collector. And it's not just the fact that we're cutting out the middleman and where the collectors and artists are interacting more closely, but also changes the art, and also the artists are also collectors. So I'm a collector myself, and I know that a lot of artists are collectors today. Well, at least on blockchain, especially on Tezos. Tezos is like a flourishing place for artists to collect, and this is I collect mostly on Tezos, actually. But to give a specific example, in terms of an artwork that has an interesting relationship between, like, the artist, changes the relationship between artist and collector. I minted a crypto poem called 12. In which I opened a wallet and I took the 12 words from the seed phrase and I created a poem based on those 12 words. And I asked 12 of my crypto writer friends to put an NFT of theirs inside this wallet. And I minted this poem, the 12 poem, and in the unlockable contents, I wrote clues to find these 12 words in the poem. And so the collector of the poem could, it was kind of like a scavenger hunt. So you collected the poem and you solved the seed phrase, and if you open the wallet, you can take all of the NFTs inside. So there was like a relationship of, like, there was a game and there was an interesting relationship between the artist and all of the collectors. Obviously there was a lot of interaction, but also what happened between the collectors as well was really, really interesting and fascinating to see, and it was completely unexpected. And what happened was the first collector who cracked the code, who cracked the seed phrase and opened the wallet, he really enjoyed the experience. He had so much fun, and he said he only took 12 of the NFTs, and he left the other 6 in the wallet because he said he wanted other people to experience the joy of opening this wallet and discovering all these, and being able to take some of these NFTs. And I thought that was completely unexpected, and I was like overjoyed to see that. I loved that. And then what happened afterwards is two other collectors kind of joined forces and cracked it together, and then they opened the wallet, and then they shared the NFTs. So that was there was to see like the collaboration and the goodwill between the collectors was really heartwarming for me. So the relationship between the collectors, between the artist and the collectors was really interesting in this piece. I'm actually working on another piece that's an on-chain play, where the collector gets to vote on how the piece ends. So that's another way in which the collector is, in a way, also the writer. And yeah, I think the blockchain kind of lets us play with these technologies in a way and make them influence, explore how the technology can influence the writing and the writing process, and who the reader is, who the writer is, what it means to collect, to read, to write, and to create. Yeah.
It's interesting that the NFT as a medium of distribution shapes a culture of a quest, of gaming, because when you collect NFTs, you're curious to see who collected you, what do they have in their wallet, who are they connected to, and there is kind of a quest every time someone collects you, or when you collect someone, you see that he's connected to this other artist, I'm gonna dig in there. So like what you did, Kellen, is it perfectly fits this culture. And we also have an idea maybe for one of our projects. We made a book with AI, and we want to mint it as an NFT, and every time someone collects it, it will generate a new version, but it also will a new PDF version that will be printed. But every time someone collects, it will either transform one of the pages or burn one of the pages.
So it will change the story? Every time it's collecting, the new story is coming?
Either it's going to be a new page, or it's going to be a page burned, or the page is going to be glitched, and there will be a website where you can track the new versions, like a genealogical tree, and also as a quest to find which version was created and who got it. And I think it's a lot of artists are also trying to put this gaming into place, but in the most funny and smart ways. And this is really like proper to the NFT culture, I think, for the distribution.
It's interesting, and notice how at the beginning of the talk we were talking about trying to focus more on NFTs as a medium of production rather than of sales, but then both of them kind of are intertwined somehow. And that was also what you were mentioning the other day to me, Agoria, with live minting as well. And I found that maybe you could speak a little bit about that to us, because I find that to bridge that gap as well.
I really try to onboard every people I can meet. And I really try to evangelize, let's say, all the people, as many as possible, because I'm playing every weekend in front of big crowds and people who are not aware so much about this. But they are like, so the technology and the new medium help us to push the technology to find solutions, which is something I really like. The idea is you go to a show and you can actually live mint the audio and the video when you're here easily. So, but there are many questions about the network. We're speaking about the internet, and this is a real question, like how we can make sure that there is no congestion and everyone here can easily, when they are not really aware about how to create a wallet, how to be involved, which blockchain, which currency, and so on. this is the thing that is really interesting to me, is like to make it easier and accessible to most of us. And that's what I'm trying to do as much as possible. I already managed to onboard all my friends, scientists, researchers, philosophers, which I'm really happy about this, because we were speaking about the relationship between artists and collectors, but also I think we need to get the smartest people, and it can be people working with the living, because my passion is to measure the living and the algorithm and to find the immanence in this both world, and to show that actually the coding can be alive and vice versa. So if we manage to get all these people with us, thinking with us, we're going to have a better and better tools and better ideas of things we can do. So yeah, I'm in this mission maybe.
And maybe you, I mean, your perspective is also interesting on this, because in your case, there's this kind of transition between analog art and digital sculpture. And we were speaking just before about this kind of separation that is more prevalent in analog art between the artist and his work and the relationship with the viewer as well. But also we can think this is also changing with, we think of participative works such as Tino Segal's works, for instance, in which the audience is directly solicited and participates in the work. Do you find there to be, in your work, do you find that it's a logical continuation, the transition to the digital realm? And or do you find that it it provides less of a separation between the artists and the viewer? How does that transition operate for you in that sense?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. To me, I think it's a very, how to say, it's a way to have some idea take life in a more interactive way with my work. For example, with augmented reality, you can, for example, I was part of the CADAF exhibition this June in Paris. So it was like a parcours in all Paris with a QR code at different key places in Paris, and you could scan the QR code and have a augmented reality piece of art show up, you know, and it was on the theme of Ukraine, no war in Ukraine, you know, like peace and with Ukraine. And so it was something I would not easily do in physical. Yes, you can bring like, you can create a sculpture physical in the street, for sure, or make a fresque. But here it was, you know, a way to make it move the piece of art, like the sculpture. You could, I made a sort of Marianne wearing a flag of Ukraine, and it was very powerful for me to show that and to make this work. And without new technology, I could not do it, you see. And also to have a sculpture dance, I call it Dance for Peace, to have it, you know, dance around. It was really fun, and I think it's a different way of using sculpture in more in an interactive way with the viewer. To answer your question, you know, and so yes, for me it was not natural, I would say, a continuation of my work, but I explore it. I explore this medium because I'm more like in the physical realm. But my partner, who is a geek, put me in that new universe, and now I use it as a new way of exploration as an artist, and I love it, and I want to explore also different. You are speaking about AI and all that, and I really want to explore. So I'm using it as a new, like clay, you know, like if I would use augmented reality, like clay or different. Yeah, medium. So many things to do. Like it's endless, the possibilities.
Yeah, to rebound on what you're saying, I think the NFT culture is putting into light a lot of mediums of production that were maybe not valued enough, and it acculturates people to work with new tools such as augmented reality, and all these 3D artists, those graphists who were working with tools but were not getting the financial and the social recognition now are put into the spotlight thanks to NFTs. and the next generation will be more how to say. They will know more about those tools. They will explore them more, and this is what NFT is bringing: attention to these new technologies. And another debate, the succession rights, so for the works, but it's another topic.
Yeah, and I'm waiting a lot for, the glasses that you can see, like, for example, Paris with augmented filter, like if you want to activate it or not, because you can also, like, for instance, the piece with Ukraine, I put it on an app that shows AR work in front of the Russian embassy. So it was a way also to manifest, my disagreement with what's happening right now in the world over there. And in the future, I guess we might have all like glasses that we can use or not. It's like augmented reality. But then you can also use it to bring messages with your art, in various ways.
To wrap it up, because we only have a couple minutes left, but I really wanted to ask you also about how an artist navigates the art market and the specificities for NFT-based art, in the market. Because although we were trying to establish this separation, as mentioned earlier, it is true that, and this goes for all types of media, there is no clear separation between an artist and the art market, and the art market can obviously condition an artist's work. So how would you say, in your experience, it is to establish relationships with collectors, getting your work out there? How does that pan out for you concretely in new media art? For instance, would you like to take it away? If not, I do have some more questions, because I was specifically interested in, for example, the question of curation, because there is this very, as we were mentioning before, decentralized kind of viewpoint in which the artist has direct control of his work. And for instance, how does that, for example, is that a part of your work? Is that something you think that should enter NFT-based art?
Well, I think in my case, it's a little more complex. It's not because I'm an artist and a writer, so I'm thinking also not just of the art market, but also of the publishing market. And I think what's interesting about NFTs is, it's open to everyone. And personally, my practice, I'm a writer and artist that was born in this space. I've never published before. I wasn't, an artist before, quote unquote, and I literally started minting when I discovered NFTs because I was so excited by the technology that I wanted to do something. And I've always, I've been a long time lover of like literature and obviously art as well, but I've always written kind of in my garret, and it's my medium, I would say. And so I started minting writing. And I think so if there was that, if I had to go through a publisher, I don't know if I ever would have explored, conceptual writing or, and I think it's a little bit different for me. Sorry, I think the question was about the market, wasn't it?
Yes, but it does answer that also, because we were speaking about the question of getting your work out there and how do you do that.
Yeah, I think it's, so you can get your artwork out there. You can mint. Anybody can mint. But I suppose the flip side is that you also have to market your own work. You don't have a gallerist who is responsible for selling your work. So as an artist in the space, you have to do your own marketing. You have to go on Twitter and you have to find the collectors. And so it is a lot of work, and burnout is very real in this space. Yeah.
Because the NFT market is really community-based, compared to the traditional art market that is more like gatekeepers style. You get step by step to a certain level of recognition that will get you in this certain gallery, that will get you in this certain museum. And compared to NFT, that is fully community based, Not fully, but mostly community-based. Just Beeple is the perfect example. He had a lot of followers, and he had not done a single exhibition before selling at Christie's. And thanks to the way he built this community, and how, for example, you building the community with the verse on Twitter, interacting with collectors. That's the main distinction, I would say, between the traditional and the NFT art market. And for example, we don't have a community, a big community, so we're still playing with the traditional market strategies, but for the NFT market.
Yeah, and also the big difference is that when one of your work is resold, you as an artist, you get 10% or like the percentage you decided, and this is a huge difference between traditional art, physical art, because when your work is resold, you get nothing, and you don't even know when it's resold sometimes, So this is huge difference.
In your case, Agoya, do you agree, or do you think that sometimes artists would need an entourage or some kind of curation to their work? Do you think that is beneficial in this space, or do you think that should stay in another realm of?
I don't think there is just one simple answer, because every artist are all different. So any artist, like I have some needs, other will have some other needs. There is no only just, by definition, an artist is complex. So definitely we need some entourage for some, and others will manage by themselves perfectly. It's there is no real road for this, but I just want to say this: most of the time, the community is fantastic, and this is also why I'm so passionate by the Web3. Is like I meet in the real life all the people during my tour or in fairs or today, and I meet a lot of people that are really passionate, and it gives me the passion to continue and to go forward as an artist, because we could also, of course, keep doing art in institutions as we used to. And what I really think is like, and why I'm persuaded of what I'm doing now is, I love to question what's real and what's not real. And actually, when we are always showing art like through screens or augmented reality or all the new media that are gonna come, like, what's virtual is totally real. And even if you're, we can compare with book, we can compare with sculpture. Like when you watch a sculpture or when you read a book, you're in front of it, you're with it, but you're not anymore in your body. Same with the cinema, and the same with what we are doing. So I love the second grid of lecture for this. And the relationship we have with collectors, which is like totally virtual in a way, I love to see it totally real in the world. So the connection between these two words is shaping, and I think it's for the best.
Well, I think these are great closing words. So maybe we can open it up to the rest of the room. Do any of you have any questions that you would like to ask the artists? By the way, I really encourage you to go and visit their web pages to see their work, because we'd like to project some of their works, but unfortunately it wasn't possible. But I do think that if you're not acquainted with their works, it's worth going and visit. Yes, sorry, I saw a hand raised over there. No. Yes, please go ahead.
As well. Hello, everyone. There's a lot of people say that blockchain is a medium of art, and a lot of discussion between what is crypto art, what is NFT art a thing. I was just curious about what is your sort of definition of using blockchain as a medium, because I guess that's the topic of the panel. So, voilà. Thank you.
Who would like to take that? That's a tough one.
I can start, and maybe you can follow. So, blockchain as a medium of distribution is quite identified, distributing NFTs, images or videos that you produce. And I would say that blockchain as used as a medium specific, is playing with the smart contracts. And I think artists like Primavera de Filippi, who's or Terra Zero, a project where forest becomes a blockchain entity interacting with humans, and giving how to say, like a legal perspective to a tree, because it's integrated in a system where it activates sometimes a smart contract. I think this is blockchain specific. Or Ria Myers, who hides works in her smart contracts, and there are actually very few of those, and so there is kind of this confusion between crypto art and blockchain specific art. But yeah, for example, your projects are, I would say, medium specific to the blockchain, as you play with the wallet, you play with the smart contracts in your next play you want to build. So maybe you can develop also.
I think we have a quick minute for you to intervene, and then we'll have to continue the conversation informally. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I agree completely with your definition. I think something crypto, blockchain native art is something in which it could not be done outside of this space. So, you know, like playing with smart contracts or using, you know, something in this ecosystem as an integral part of the artwork. So it couldn't exist as a book or as a painting or in a different medium, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, we have no more time for questions, but we can continue speaking informally outside. Thank you again for coming here and for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't think he can see us, right? I don't think so.
Yeah, because there was no camera, right?
Bonjour à tout le monde. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a Friday morning. It's finally sunny, so it's lovely, and we have amazing collectors and amazing art collectors, NFT collectors here this morning with us. I'm Diane Drubé, Head of Art and Culture at Tezos Connect, which is a Tezos hub in Berlin. And I have next to me Leila Kazaneh. She is the founder of Metaverse Advisor. She's a lawyer, an investor, a collector, and co-founder of 1204 Labs, or 1204. It's an agency guiding artists towards innovative practices. I'm delighted to have Sylvain Lévy, co-founder of the DSL collection. He's a visionary collector, art collector of Chinese contemporary art, and a really future-driven art innovator. He was
I'm going to blush.
he was the first to put his collection of Chinese contemporary art in virtual worlds more than a decade ago. So if you don't know the DSL collection online, please check it. Jean-Michel Payon, Chief of Staff at Ledger, a very famous and active NFT collector and crypto maximalist, co-founder of NFT Factory Paris. We just opened this week and officially on Monday. Yeah, very, very good place. Check it just in front of the Centre Pompidou. And also co-founder of France FinTech as well. Brian, who is also called Artemar, very active as well, NFT collector, being involved in the blockchain and the art scene for the past 7 years. Is now appointed as new NFT specialist at Sotheby's. So we have also Adam, who is joining us online. Hi, Adam. I don't know if you can actually see us.
Oui, je vous vois très bien.
Ah, parfait.
On va le faire en français, non, le discours. Il ne faut pas le faire en anglais, on est à Paris quand même.
Bonne question. We can switch from French to English. It will be a little bit messy. But indeed, it's actually well spotted. We are all French-speaking people as well. But yeah.
It's the decentralized world. We can each speak whatever language we want.
I would love that.
For YouTube, it's better in English.
For what?
For YouTube, it's better in English.
Indeed, we have everything being live streamed on our website right now. So let's keep with English. Adam, really nice to welcome you here. Adam is also a very active collector. He operates Venus over Manhattan, a gallery dedicated to iconic historical and contemporary exhibitions. This panel of 5 collectors is really exceptional, so thank you so much for joining us. NFT collector, what does it mean? What does it mean for you? Do you feel that you are an art collector? Do you feel that you are a patron? Do you feel that you are the friend of all the artists that you collect? How do you define yourself? Leila, do you want to start?
Sure, can you hear me? The mic is working. NFT collector, so for me, even though I am a contemporary art collector, my NFT collecting is completely different. So I really came into this world from the technology point of view, even though I'm not a big tech person, but it's sort of, into that, I'm a lawyer, as you said, I've always worked in the financial markets, and in 2015, just out of curiosity, I read the Bitcoin white paper, and that just sort of blew me away. I couldn't believe that this guy, in just 5 pages, was describing a world without lawyers and without banks that could actually work. And that was sort of my awakening into the crypto world. I got into the rabbit hole that way. So first with Bitcoin, then Ethereum. the idea of programmable money, smart contracts, and then NFTs as these things that can actually transfer value on-chain without going through various intermediaries. So that sort of was my journey, and my first NFT collection started with CryptoKitties. Do you remember those? It was sort of late 2017, a collection of digital cats that you could sort of interact with, and you could connect different cats to each other and breed new cats. And anyway, so that brought me sort of to where I am now, and the art aspect of it came much later.
And in 2 words, how can you define yourself as an NFT collector? Or one word.
Excited about the future.
Good. Adam, what about you?
Well, I came at it from 2 perspectives. In 2018, I tried to create a cryptocurrency of fine art, where we would basically raise $100 million, buy a collection, and tokenize it for the benefit of all the token holders, which was very interesting. It was a great launch in Miami, and then Bitcoin went from 10,000 to 2,000, ended that story, and I came back buying CryptoPunks, and then Meebits, and then I was very interested in the Bored Apes, and I was very lucky to meet Beeple and become a fan and a friend of Beeple's, and then I coincidentally bumped into a guy called Snowfro, Eric Calderon, and I said, hey, why don't I do a show for you? He said, are you serious? No one's ever offered me a show. I was like, okay, let's do it. So we did a show of Chromie Squiggles. He's the founder of Art Blocks, and he's also one of the great unicorns in the NFT space. So lucky that that's the guy I started with. And Venus ended up minting about 350 Chromie Squiggles and basically finishing the mint of 10,000. And through Eric and Beeple and all the events that I've held, meeting the guys from Larva Labs and the people from Yuga Labs and Jean-Michel Payon, and speaking with him about, you know, the European perspective and Ledger and all of that. I've had the pleasure of doing three or four shows of NFTs for Eric Calderon, working with Justin Aversano, the great photographer, where we created a whole mint for him called Cognition and Exhibition. And I'm coming to Miami, this Miami now on December 1st, doing another exhibition of Chromie Squiggles for the benefit of the Squiggle community. So I have a collection, and I'm very interested in getting other people to look at digital art, to collect, and to understand the whole sort of economy of the NFT world.
I got my Chromie Squiggle from Venus over Manhattan, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. And by the
got
way,
a
it was a very
fuzzy.
good deal.
It
Look
was a
you
great
got
deal,
a fuzzy.
and I got a fuzzy.
You're
Yeah.
doubly lucky. And you see the floor now is almost 12, and we were selling them at 6. So, you know, people think that NFTs have collapsed or the NFT market has gone down. Obviously, all the crypto markets are down, but some of these projects are very healthy. And those are the ones that will survive the winter, and I think will become the sort of the pillars of what's a new collecting audience and a new art collecting world on the computer.
Brian, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I think what he said I was absolutely agreeing with, to be honest.
How have you started to collect?
It's a funny thing because I always tend to define myself more as a chronic accumulator than a collector, which is that I think when you do a collection, there is a thought process of what makes it a cohesive ensemble in a collection, and honestly don't do that much. I just stumbled upon things and I like those and I just want them. And since I was a kid, I would just accumulated everything. When I was going to the sea, I would just pick up seashells on the beach and I'll just keep them in a bag. And I have over 500 seashells now at my place. And everything like that, all the invitation cartel, I've kept them. All the letter I might have the stamps. I mean, anything I can stumble upon, I just keep, and I just keep things. And what the problem with that occurs with that is at some points you run out of space, and with NFTs and digital art, well, there is no problem of running out of space because it's somewhere out there in the blockchain, and so that's quite practical for me, and I've kept on just accumulating stuff, but now digitally through NFT.
Thanks. Sylvain, you've been collecting for decades. How do you define yourself, and how do you define yourself in this Web3 space?
How do I define myself? I define myself as being obliged to reinvent myself and being obliged to do it for many, many times. And especially now, I think that we are living in a very unique area in the human being. I think that the COVID showed us that a part of being Homo sapiens, we are Homo numericus. And more we'll have to live, especially with the metaverse, we'll have to live with another life. And in this another life, in these new spaces, blockchain will be very important, and naturally NFT. So I think my perspective is not just about art, but is about how the society will move within the next 10 years and how, I shall say, we will address the way we will, I shall say, consume art, but also exhibit art, and especially to the young generation. This is my first perspective. I'll tell you something which makes me a little bit laugh, if I can speak like that, because you're speaking of my long past. You know, there is now a kind of new hype called the ultra-contemporary art, which is an important part of the market. The ultra-contemporary market is about paintings. It's not about NFTs. So it shows you a little bit the difference between what is the art market and what is the society. But I think it's an interesting point to see how the art market is reluctant, or even the art community is reluctant to adapt to the new world, to the new people. And what we do with this collection is to try to do that. And just a few words, we've been on Second Life in 2012, we went in virtual reality 2015, 2020 we went in video games, and on the metaverse in 2021. And we just launched this week an Ukrainian pavilion with a Ukrainian platform, blockchain platform located in New York, where we exhibit artists from the Ukrainian. We had 200 artists responding to the open call. We show fashion design inside. We show museums. And we have a lot of things. And this is related to a space with NYU and related with a space in Shenzhen. So I think that this is all the spaces where we'll be inhabited by this new type of work. And then after we can speak of the creativity of the NFT, but perhaps later I can tell my opinion on that.
It's a pleasure, thanks. Jean-Michel?
I see myself as building bridge, basically, between the old art collection world and the new world. And as Sylvain just said, I think it's a very much, for me, it's a technological shift, it's a generational shift, and it's a cultural shift. And if you take a bit of distance with what is happening right now in the NFT space and the digital art space, I think that we are seeing many things at the same time, but one thing that always amazed me is the ability of the younger generation, like Brian, and even younger people than you, actually, like 15, 20 years old. They immediately get it, right? They ask me no question. They just like they get TikTok immediately, Snap immediately, etc. They just get it. You know, they don't push back or say yes, but you know, we did that way previously, and you know, it cannot happen that way. And you know, art should be physical, and then it should be paintings, it should be sculpture, etc. So for me, it's really like, again, bridge gap. Building bridge, and that's also the reason why we built this kind of NFT factory. And just to finish and to continue on the rest, I'm also seeing myself as a patron for the NFT photography world, which is a segment of the NFT fine art, which is very small. It grows a lot. Obviously, I know Adam very well. He's a friend of mine, and Justin Aversano is an amazing artist. He will probably enter a museum next year, etc., etc. So I collect and support this kind of big artists, but I also try to support the younger, the emerging art scene, which is very important because probably that one of them will be the next Peter Lindbergh or whoever.
Brian?
About the generation shift, it's true that I understand what Jean-Michel said, because I always tell this anecdote of when I was like, I think 9, 8 years old, rather than asking for I don't know, a bike or a toy for my birthday, I would ask for currency within the MMORPG I was playing back then, which, you know, seems odd. Like, my parents was like, "You want a currency in a game for your birthday?" And I was like, "Yeah, I spend all my day on that game, so of course I'm gonna have much more use of those." And so I sort of thought about that when I started with NFT, because I was like, okay, even when I was just a little child, I would value things that were digital, that were not in the real world, quote unquote, but because I could understand the value of it. And I think this has to do with, I think, quite a generational shift.
My 16-year-old son totally gets it, completely.
I'm actually wondering because, Jean-Michel, you were talking about the medium, and Sylvain, you were saying that paintings are actually ultra contemporary art. We had this beautiful discussion just before explaining the rise of new artistic medium. What do you collect? What is actually your favorite medium? What do you look at? Do you look at aestheticism, platforms, blockchain, technology behind? Do you look at data? Or, as Brian said, he just sees it and he collects. What is your way of collecting?
I think I end up, like, it's a question artists often ask, like, how do you get the attention of collectors, right? And a lot of people will tell you, oh, you have to be on Twitter 24/7, spamming all the time, which is honestly not true. I think I mostly discover artists through serendipity, in a way that I would collect one artist and then I would have a discussion with that artist about his art or just the thing he likes, his friends, and I end up discovering all the sort of social circle there is around those artists, and they would often, you know, tell me to check out some of their friends' work, etc. And I think that's really something that is unique to NFT, because I can imagine a contemporary art artist from the traditional art world orienting one of his collectors to another artist. There is often already, territorialist with the collector base, and they would not really share about their friends' work, etc. So that's often why I tell artists to, try to be known by your peers before being known by collectors, because that's really one way to discover it. And it's often, a bit stumbling upon, but those how to stumble upon an artist is often through discussion with other artists, with other collectors, and so it's direct recommendation. I honestly really rarely discover artists through marketplace feed or Twitter post or whatever. It's mostly direct discussion with collector and artist, and it's mostly things I collect are things that resonate with me to an emotional level. I don't care about the medium, can be music, something that is spiritually, something that is 3D or illustration. I don't really disregard any medium in particular. It just has to resonate with me, and it's often almost a Madeleine de Proust in some aspect, which is just, it makes me think of a memory that perhaps I'm the only one seeing this in the work, and that's just enough for me to resonate with it and wanting to support those artists in their work.
Generally speaking, I think that the NFT art doesn't vary a lot from the other kind of artistic current or anything art mediums. The best collectors are the artists, for me. And that's basically exactly as you said. When you know a good, and again, Justin Aversano, we discussed, he was in Paris last week, and we spent a lot of time together, and obviously I'm asking him, what his his next projects are, but obviously, who are you collecting right now? Who are you kind of monitoring? And guess what? He just bought one on Friday, and just the next day I bought from the same artist. So that's also
Which one was it?
I cannot tell because I'm building up my collection on that. But the good thing with actually, I'm saying so, but actually it's quite easy because you just have to follow me on Foundation, and you will see. You just have to find which artist is both collected by Justin Aversano and myself, and you will quickly find who it is.
Sylvain?
Interesting, very interesting. For me, the best collectors is like Adam. It's a person who is capable to reinvent himself, to go into 2018 into the NFT, to the blockchain. It's not a question of age. Sorry, it's not a question of age. It's a question of how you envision the things. Shushkin was able to discover the French Impressionists before the others, and it was not about NFT. So I think that it's a question of who is in front of you and how he wants to I shall say, put himself in a kind of always curiosity. And Adam is a really great example because what he has done in 2018 was really something very unusual at this time. So for me, this is for me, I think something which is important. The other thing which is important is that, you know, in art we had a lot of different types of movement. You know, and NFT perhaps is a new type of movement. We went from digital art to crypto art, and perhaps crypto art will bring new types of artists, new types of people interested by that. So I think it's part of the history of art. And the more we will have great artists, the more we will have people supporting great artists, and the more it will become something part of the history of art. It's nothing about technology. Is it relevant if it speaks to the people as an artwork and not only about technology? And I think this is the big challenge of the NFTs, is to make it digestible as art and not just as technology to the mainstream of the people, which is not the case at this moment.
If I can add two things. The first is, I totally agree with you that Adam is probably the best collector I know, and I actually very often give the example of Adam exactly for the same reason, because Adam, as you know, collected Jean-Michel Basquiat, Keith Haring, Jeff Koons, etc., and he had the ability to move into the NFT space. And guess what? He's got, you know, probably two of the best artists I also collect, Snowfro and Justin Eversano. So for sure, he's one of the best, and he's actually again an example. The other topic relates more to the generational shift is not the fact that the younger generation is better than the old one. It's just that you happen to have an easier onboarding of new collectors from the younger age than, you know, people that are already installed in their kind of collection because they are good at collecting certain impressionists or whatever. And maybe for them it's a bigger stretch to get into NFT art. And the last bit is about the technology. You are totally right. For now, NFT art, if you put that all together, it's a very, very niche market. It's a very small, there are very few collectors, probably, I don't know, 1 million, 2 million max. If you look at all the address of NFT wallets, OpenSea, Foundation, etc., and you try to merge those 4 or 5, you get to 2 million. So that's very, very small for me. Still, I think that the technology is a medium, it's not the end, and it's a way to display, it's a way to create, and therefore I think that it's actually even more universal than any kind of art, because I don't need to be in New York to collect Eric Snowfro. I don't, as an artist, you don't need to be in London to be displayed. You just have to have a connection, internet connection, to have a wallet, to create, to mint, and then, yeah, there are collectors, there are platforms, there are Twitter, there's a lot of things that enable you to distribute and to communicate about your art. But for me, it's just like internet was called, you know, the small village of world 25 years ago, something like that. For me, NFT, technology, will also bring that to the art and the cultural world, because we are talking about art, but there's also culture.
To my mind, it really actually make the art market finally global and inclusive, meaning that, well, let's talk about the art market for digital art. Like before, it was not possible to start collecting for a few cents or few euros, and it was not even possible, 2 years or 3 years ago to mint an NFT. Put a digital artwork on the blockchain for a few euros as well. So in terms of artists and collectors, it is purely, like, it is really, really global. It's not just saying that we have a few people from the different part of the world. We have thousands of people from the different part of the world. The Tezos community is really, really active in Malaysia, in the Philippines, in India, in Brazil. Africa is also rising very fast, and you can collect for a few Tez. And that's really something huge, meaning that if you are actually a fan of art, a fan of digital art, you can become a collector. And this was something which was totally not possible. Like, I remember I was working at a gallery called the Toast Gallery, like 15 years ago, and the idea of this gallery was actually to make art available, affordable to everyone. So you can buy painting from Atlas at 100 euro. And this was really something strong, and I really believed in this vision of making art totally available, affordable for everyone. Well, the galleries doesn't exist anymore, but now we really see that everyone can become a collector, and that's why also I was asking you, how do you feel about you being a collector? Because I feel that a lot of people now, they collect also because they want to support a friend. Artists are collecting because they want to be part of a community. You're becoming way more than just collectors. As you said, Jean-Michel, you're also becoming a patron. So it's the collector is having a very important and crucial role to play in this market. Well, before it was not so included, not so linked, not so direct, not so linked with the artists themselves, I think. Except the artists that you collect, obviously. But now collectors are really part of the community of artists as well, which is quite different. Adam, do you want to reflect on that?
Well, I think it's interesting because I really agree with what Sylvain said. I mean, you think about what's considered very contemporary, hyper contemporary is paintings. It's the newest paintings, and we're getting into a world where primary sales in the art collecting world are just flying off the shelf. But what we haven't discussed here is, the context of this talk is during Art Basel in Paris, which doesn't have a single NFT in it. And, will it ever have NFTs? Is this something that's going to enter into the world of fine art, or are we in a different category? And I've experienced a lot of pushback on digital art, even from my own team in the gallery. They're like, well, you can't show this, and we don't want anything to do with this, and this is not art, and this is not this, and this is not that. A lot of negative projections onto anything digital, mostly because of the speculative nature of how the NFT market sort of ballooned and mushroomed. But I would also mention that this week, something happened that TR Labs, an NFT platform, launched an educational project with the Calder Foundation. And now the Calder Foundation has an educational NFT in which you can earn the right to buy a Calder NFT and collect that. I think that's the beginning of kind of a breakthrough, because now that the Calder Foundation has done it, other foundations will be looking at it. And someone I was talking to the other night said, well, why doesn't my art foundation do this? So in fact, I do think that the world of the computer will enter the fine art world, but it's going to come through museums and through artists' estates and foundations first. I don't think that people who are buying paintings are, other than a few of us, like Jean-Michel and Sylvain, and perhaps those of us on this panel and a few others I can think of, we're not all so quick to go around and say, okay, I own this great work by whoever it is, Peter Saul, and now I want to own a Beeple. So, I'm that person, but I just wonder how this will develop. And certainly the collapse in the value of the currencies has sort of set us back for what Jean-Michel says will be no more than 2 years. So it's just something to think about. Why is the art world so against this growth in this new market at times? I think it's an interesting question.
Can I mention something very interesting also, is that what happened with Damien Hirst? People had the choice either to have the NFT or the work, and half of the person decided to have the NFT, and half the person decided to have the works. So I think this is something interesting as a way that how things are shifting. But when we speak of NFT... Sorry?
Qu'est-ce que vous avez choisi? What did you decide?
I don't collect Damien Hirst, unfortunately.
I kept the NFT, but it was painful to see the paper being burnt.
It's come to something very interesting, is that the NFT is not linked with an object, is linked with an experience. And that's something very, very new. Because when you will be on the metaverse, you will not be a collector, you will not be an audience, you will be a user. You will be a user. And what will be produced for the metaverse in digital, when we speak of digital, will be something produced specially for new types of experiences and especially for gamification. And we know the links between the metaverse and the gamification. So we'll have a new kind of artist, a new kind of audience, a new kind of way to own things, which will be very, very different. But the Damien Hirst is a good example on how we are moving slowly but surely, not in, I shall say, in the key players in the art world, but I shall say in how the middle people are today visioning how could be the future of what is a collection and what is an artwork.
Yeah, absolutely.
How
That's the
about
way
you,
I see that
Jean-Michel?
space.
What did Jean-Michel do with his Damien Hirst?
I didn't have one. I didn't
You don't
buy
like it?
No, I didn't have. I didn't bought one. Neither on primary nor secondary sale.
And what have you done?
What did you do, Adam?
Well, I thought it was interesting because I have collected Damien for many years and suffered some good moments and some serious disappointments. And I thought this whole thing of the Damien Hirst currency was fascinating, even though the work itself was nothing new and nothing that interesting. So I don't know if I did the right thing. I bought two, and I burned one, and I kept one as an NFT.
That's a great collector.
That was the easy way to go about it.
That's cheating.
Yeah.
I have one in my office, and I have one in my wallet, my MetaMask.
It's personally the only NFT I ever sold because I didn't want to make that decision. I didn't know what to do, and I was really confused. And it was really a dilemma more than a choice. It was a dilemma, and if I could have, I would have done like you, buying two. But honestly, I just had one, and so a bit, lâchement, sort of decided to sell it away because it was just a decision I couldn't make myself doing it.
How much? How much did you get?
For selling it, you mean?
Yeah, the price.
I think it was 9 ETH or something like that. But it's literally paid back the entire sort of investment, quote unquote, I did on NFT. I've sold perhaps just 2 or 3 works. It's one of the few I've sold. So it wasn't really much about the price, honestly. It was just about, you have the decision to make. What are you going to choose? And everybody was telling me, you need to have the NFT, you need to have the work. And the work is quite a small format. So I'm someone that is really rational and pragmatic. So I went on ArtPrice and I looked at, what are the dot painting in that size? What are they selling for? And what are the things like that? And I was like, this seems a little bit overvalued. And so all this thought process that in the end I threw out the window because I was like, I just don't want to make the decision. And it's funny because Damien Hirst, he did the first project, which honestly was a little shit. It was just a view of exhibition of what he did at the Fondation Cartier, and I was, this is not really interesting. And then he came up with that project called the Currency, and I was like, wow, he really get it now. And I thought he really makes something that could literally be defined as crypto art, or at least some sort of blockchain art, because it used the Burns mechanic that is something you wouldn't be able to do in the traditional art world. And so it was really funny to see how he managed to make this sort of thought process and of understanding the culture and understanding the process quite fast, and just in the span of a few months. And he's one, I think, of the few traditional artists that did one of the best sort of crypto art project that is out there for sure.
And what do you all think about the phygital NFT, the combination of an NFT with something physical? Because like Tom Sachs made a rocket, you end up with the rocket and the NFT. Or, Damien Hirst made this, you can get either this NFT or you get the piece of paper that he made, or things like that. Because I spoke to Eric Calderon the other day about it, and I think it's very interesting because I'm coming from the physical collecting art world, but he thinks it's very bad. He thinks that NFTs should remain pure and should not be connected to physical objects in any way.
Well, it's funny because that's how I started to get involved in blockchain. So I was really fascinated by counterfeits. And back in 2016, 17, we didn't really talk much about digital art. It was all about physical art in the blockchain for traceability and authentication, provenance tracking. And we didn't talk about digital art that much. And even CryptoKitties is hardly arguably an art piece. It's more about a collectible. And so it's really interesting to see all those blockchain maximalists being, oh, the purest form is fully digital, whereas actually the first project that was in art and blockchain, like Mass and As, Codex Protocol, or those companies like Artify or Artori, were on the topic of physical object being backed on blockchain. And there's also, most of the projects now are either dead or just not really successful. Why? Because there's a lot of, it's really difficult to physicalize a digital solution, and there's a lot of friction, especially how do you link physical object with an archive, not even a digital archive, just an archive. Some people use PUF, physical unclonable function, but honestly there is no standard yet, because you gotta find something that is non-invasive, because you're just not gonna whack NFC chips on any, you know, wall or key firing. You just cannot do that. Or carve what some people were like, yeah, we're gonna carve stuff on the back of the painting, and people are like, no, you just we're not gonna do that. And I totally understand. So I really think there's a potential for it. I just think that at the moment we don't have the technical capability to make it worthwhile. And I've seen with Beeple, for example, there's a lot of Beeple is often talked about as a digital artist, but when you look about it, he literally made only 2 NFTs that are fully digital. All these other NFTs are linked with a physical asset, infinite object for a digital frame. And most of the peers now that with the NFTs and the digital frame are separated. So when you want to purchase one of those editions, you got to check with the seller if he actually has the digital display, and there is no way to be sure that when you purchase the NFT that it's going to send it to you. And if you want to get it, that means you have to give your names and address. So this raises a lot of problem about doxing, etc. So honestly, there's all those problems and friction that aren't solved at the moment. Projects are interesting trying to do things there, but I haven't found anything that make me say, wow, this is the way to do it.
But I think there's another way to look at this also. And actually, I learned this from Snowfro, so I'm surprised he said that, where he talks about sort of, you know, we're starting with generative art, but actually where we're headed is generative experience that is going to become ubiquitous. And the example that he gives, remember, is that, you know, in the near future, maybe later, because of the cost of manufacturing going down, you're going to walk into IKEA and you're going to choose the sort of overall design that you like and the work of that designer, but you're going to mint your own unique sofa, right? So I think that's another interesting way for the digital and the physical to come together, where as a collector or as a buyer, you're actually participating in that process.
You know, can I give you the other face of the coin?
Yeah.
You know, it will become very, very difficult for collectors. Because today, when you collect a work, you cannot show it. The digital image belongs to the artist. And if now he can sell the digital image, what are you going to do with the physical one? And this will become a huge problem in the future. How you will manage the physical and the digital as a collector. And this is, for me, the biggest issue for the future, especially when you will be tending to show your collection in virtual worlds. Because this, for me, is my real concern for how I will build the collection for the next years, knowing that I have to take into account the physical and the digital.
If I may add something to that, I think because maybe I'm more collecting photography, it's easier because an artwork or photography can be digital. Actually, most of the photographers are shooting with digital cameras. So therefore, the NFT that they mint, the main artwork is digital. It's created as digital, and therefore, what I collect, I call it the digital
twin?
No. Le négatif numérique. I don't know how to say it in English, but tu sais comment on dit negative? So digital negative? Okay, so digital negative. What I collect is the digital negative, and I have a story to tell about Bruce Gilden, who is a famous photographer for Magnum. So basically, I buy the first, the primary art, I would say, and then eventually the artist, and I buy mostly one-on-ones, and then the artist eventually propose to print a physical twin of the digital, but the original, to the point of Sylvain, the original remains the digital. No, the digital piece is the original, and the print becomes a kind of accessory. So it's kind of flipping up the other side, which exactly was Brian was saying before, which was initially the blockchain technology in art was used as a mean to kind of prove the authenticity and the authenticity and the traceability of whatever you want. And now, at least for me, when I buy an artwork which is digital, what matters is the digital one. The physical, it's for me not almost worthless. And a story, and then I end the mic back. So Bruce Gilden is a photographer. I bought one of his one-on-one photography. That happens, one of the print is at the MoMA. Okay? So, and Bruce was in Paris a couple of weeks ago, and we discussed about that. So we'll have an interesting discussion with the MoMA in 5 years. Who owns the original? Do I own it, or the MoMA owns it? And well, we have an interesting discussion with Bruce, and I don't want to spoil it, but we'll have an interesting discussion with the MoMA in 5 years.
I think this is maybe leading to our last question before we take questions from the audience. What do you do with your collection? So Brian, you were saying that you sold just a few. Sylvain, you are showing a collection in virtual worlds. Can you tell us more? What do you do with your collection, knowing that, exactly as you said, we are normally not allowed to actually exhibit our NFTs, except if it's actually written in the contract directly. So what do you do with your collection?
Most NFT license does take into account what Sylvain was talking about, which is called, I think, reproduction rights, which happened is that I had the problem with a friend of mine who was a collector that wanted to make a book about his collection, and he realized that if he needed to illustrate that book, he would need to pay all the artists reproduction right, even though he's the owner of the artwork. He was really surprised by that. It was like, okay, I wasn't aware of it, and most of the time artists are fine when you post pictures on Instagram of your collection or views, and in the end, most of the time the reproduction rights are ignored, even by artwork stakeholders. So what I like to do is actually playing around with on Cyber. I don't know if you use some of those tools, because they're, I think, easy to play with. And I do like to put some VR sort of gallery, and perhaps sometimes mix a little thread about artists I collect and why I collect them, and things like that. But most of the people from the art world are like, hey, how do you enjoy your art collection, because you cannot see it, right? And I often tell them, look at the data on your phone, and you'll realize that you spend more than 8 hours looking at your phone, and so you're most likely more looking at your phone than you're looking at the outside world. And so the works you see the most are perhaps the one that you have as a fond d'écran on your phone. And so and that's happening sometimes when you have artwork on your wall, you almost forget them because they're around around yourself all the time. When you're on your phone or device, I don't know, I feel like I just enjoy them even more. I realize they're there because I see them all the time, but right in front of me, not around me as decoration. And I think that the decorative aspect not being part of NFT really is a really positive thing, because when I work in galleries, some people were like, oh, I like this piece, it will go well with my sofa. And I'm like, yeah, that's not really the way to go about it. And if there is not the decorative aspect, I think we give more importance to the conceptual aspect of the work. I don't know, that's what you do as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for me also, it's not the point to actually like hang an NFT or have it on a screen on my wall. It's more about first of all, we spend a lot of time on screens, not just our phones, but our desktops, etc. And I enjoy my NFTs like that. But for me, it's even more important. I mean, the reason why I collect is because I want to be part of that culture, part of the community. And when I collect an NFT, others see that I collected that NFT. As collectors, we connect. As artists, collector, we connect. With the artwork, because of generative art, we connect. So those connections are, what's crucial for me.
It's interesting because I think we are playing against what we want to do. And what we want to do is about disseminating and democratizing art. But when I listen to you, can I be very direct with you? I feel that today, to collect, you have to be a lawyer and a geek. you know. Before it was very easy to go to the flea market and to buy something. It's very easy to go to a library and to buy a book. But to buy today an artwork, you need really to be very, very, very clever.
No.
In terms of
I
being
strongly
a gift.
disagree with
No,
you.
no,
I
no,
strongly
no.
disagree with you.
You know, today you need a valet. I don't know how many persons from, I shall say, my age can use a valet. You have to need to read a smart contract, and I can tell you, smart contract can be very, very tricky. So it's very, I shall say, very perhaps challenging the future. But I do hope that if you want to have big communities, that one day we'll just talk about an artwork and not something else linked with any type of technology. I think this would be the best way to democratize art.
Jean-Michel?
No, I strongly disagree with that because, again, I've been a young collector myself, and I must say that I have been very badly welcome in galleries. I will not quote any name, but even a year ago, I went to a very famous gallery, not very far from that, at a very famous, one of the famous gallery in Paris, doing photography, displaying JR, okay? And, okay, so you can all find who it is. And basically, I enter and I said, "Oh, I like this photo of JR. You know, can I buy it?" And the person said, "Maybe. Who are you?" And I said, "Google me," because I happen to be a little bit famous on Twitter. You know, just on Twitter, but that's okay. And I had a very, very bad experience. And with this gallery, so I said, "Well, do I buy it or not?" And I said, "I don't know. I need to ask my responsible who is in Dubai right now, an art fair, etc., etc." And it kept on for 2 weeks. And for 2 weeks, they kind of said, "Maybe you can buy, maybe you cannot buy." And at the end, eventually, they said no. And guess what? Even if they said to me yes, I would have said no. No, it's not democratic. So this is the kind of thing I don't like. And this is the kind of thing I face myself as a young collector. I have a lot of young people around me. And they are just like very badly welcomed by the traditional contemporary art. In crypto, NFT is totally different. You are anonymous if you want. You get docs like myself if you want. But, you know, everybody can buy. And as you said, Diana, also, on Tezos, you can buy a photography for 2 ETH, 3 ETH, even 1 ETH if you want, from, you know, a photographer. Anyway, sorry, in Tezos. So the point is that, no, the point is that it's very affordable, very easy. Yes, there's a friction, technological friction when you need to have a wallet. But apart from that, the younger generation, for them, it will be much easier for them to onboard into culture and NFT and art in general.
We have 30 seconds left. Adam, do you have a last word for us?
Well, you know, I've always bought art and put it in storage. So I don't really see what's the problem with buying a digital art and not necessarily putting it on my wall. It's something I own and it seems fine for me. But everyone's always asking, well, what do you do with it? And I find that's kind of like doesn't appreciate art in a sense, as if art only exists to decorate a wall. You know, art is something that's part of culture, and you're participating in contemporary culture when you buy a work that's digital and on the blockchain. In the same way that you're participating in contemporary culture when you buy a physical work of art. So you don't really need to cover my house in screens, but that doesn't mean that I'm less interested in digital art. I'm actually more interested in what's going on the blockchain because it's part of what's changing the world.
And I will add something else. At Art Basel, we have an exhibition space with Tezos. A few collectors came on Wednesday telling us we have this beautiful collection. Like when I say a few, it's actually plenty. Wednesday was full of people. We have this huge collection. No one can see it. We would like to put it on the blockchain so people can start co-owning it with us, or they can start seeing it. So they actually they would like to use the blockchain to highlight and exhibit their collection more publicly. So I think we are far away from knowing how the art world will actually react for the next few months or years. But what we feel at Art Basel right now is that people are ready. Collectors are ready to actually jump and start experiencing on blockchain. Adam, Brian, Leila, Jean-Michel, Sylvain, merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
I don't know if we have time for question. No, we don't. So thank you so much, and we talk to each other
Let
after.
me know when you come to Paris.
Okay, definitely. Merci à vous tous. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.